Hi, guys. Yeah, normally there's like a little nice wind down of that song, but that's because Davey knows what he's doing. And once again, peculiars, I am on my own, but I remembered to turn the video on this time, which is super great because we're live actually, as opposed to not live, which is what happens a lot of the time. Seen a couple of comments. Anyone chiming in through Facebook? I was just seeing if there was any trouble, and I asked Jennifer to check. I see Stephanie Smith is here. Hello, hello. Sadie is here. And that's Stephanie again. Y'all being fast. Jennifer's here. Leanne. It's nice to see all of you guys. Hopefully I won't mess anything else up, but I make no promises. So I'm very excited tonight because we have a couple of really exciting and interesting things going on. We've got two different guests because with me during the show tonight is Cheryl Green, and I can't figure out how to add her with the Inksplosion, so she's just going to pop up suddenly like that. Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, I feel the Inksplosion in my heart and my soul. This was amazing.
I could not figure out how to make it I don't know how to toggle between these two screens very well. Jennifer says I've got this. I sure hope I sure hope so. Leanne noticed my leopard spots. I didn't have any tiger stripes to wear, but I did some leopards. Sadie Simmons, she says I just finished Alice's book this morning and I really loved it. And there's a shout out about an article Brandy wrote, which I didn't actually realize, which is kind of fun. Chloe is also here, and Lexi is here. She says she's making that cocktail now. We're going to talk about that cocktail and its amazing name in just a minute. Yes, another black kitty. We totally have another black kitty. Cheryl, what is your little black kitty's name?
Well, how far do we go with this? I mean, his given name is Henry IV, Part 2. But I'm not about to call the vet and be like, hi, this is Cheryl calling for Henry IV, Part 2. So he has typically gone by Prince Hal because in Henry IV, Part 1, the play, Prince Hal is the rabble-rouser going out, drinking, partying, just like this guy. But generally,
he's a wild one.
He's a wild one, but he just goes by Ruru.
Ruru, I like that. I like that. Yeah, we've got a little kitty too. His name is Darwin, and most of you will probably get a chance to meet him again in a little bit. He had his first vet appointment today, so he was a little sleepy. Before we get too far along, Cheryl has so much to offer. She has done so many things. In addition to being my transcriptionist for BMJ, because Alice introduced me to you, you have been Alice's person first transcribing, but you also do film and production and direction. So I just was wondering if you could say a little bit more about all the things that you do.
Oh my gosh, all the things that I do. Well, I collect cat stuff. That is something that I do. Yes, transcription. I don't do the documentary film anymore. I have a podcast called Pigeonhole, and I also edited and produced 30-something episodes from Alice's Disability Visibility podcast and transcribed them. So that was fun to get so much time with the episodes. But primarily what I do to make a living is I'm a captioner and subtitler and audio describer, primarily video, independent documentary and dance. And that's, audio description of dance is pretty challenging.
Yeah, no kidding.
As a non-dancer.
Well, for me, my introduction to Alice Wong came basically through Twitter. So, as much as we get frustrated with Twitter and the things it does or doesn't offer us, I wouldn't have probably met Alice if not for Twitter. And I ended up getting to know her. She was on my podcast for the British Medical Journal, and I talked to her about the show, you guys. She's really excited about what we have going on, and she loved the promo video. So I'm going to roll that next just so everybody can kind of see. But essentially tonight is a true book club night. We have Cheryl, who's worked on the Disability Visibility Project. We can ask Cheryl about those things, is an advocate and activist yourself. And also we have the book itself that we can talk about. There's so many things. Then later in the show, at the end of the show, we get to talk to Wendy Liu from New York Times, who's increasing coverage for disability. So I think it's going to be a really exciting night. So I'll go ahead and roll this tape. You guys go ahead and queue up your comments. It's always really helpful if you put a Q in front of the questions because it's just me tonight. Let's be kind. So I'm going to go ahead and play this, and I'll see you all in a few minutes.
Did I dream of becoming an activist? Asks Alice Wong in her memoir, Year of the Tiger. No, but it's probably what I'm most known for. Ableism conscripted me into activism. Other people have the luxury to opt in and out of activism, like earning extra credit for a project, but not me. In this truly moving, amazing, and humorous account of her life, Alice Wong talks about herself like an alien visiting from another planet, but also about the power, the tiger power, and the resistance and hope of being someone who has dealt with disability all of her life. It's a collection of essays, but it's also photographs, memoir, collages, pictures, and coloring books. It's a celebration. It asks hard questions. It is not attempting to please. Curating herself in words, images, and objects, she offers us something truly new for disability visibility. After our book discussion, join us for a last segment with Wendy Liu, senior staff editor at the New York Times, dedicated to improving disability news coverage. This will be an amazing evening where we get a chance to talk about an equally amazing person and her amazing book.
Whoop. I don't know what happened there. Sorry. See, again, the flow is a little different when Davey's not here. But I just wanted people to get a sense of what this book was really about, and it's just so awesome that she's done it. It's partly a memoir, but I love the fact that it's also got like a coloring book aspect to it. It's just really wonderful. Also, people were really excited about your cat.
He's awesome. And this card here, this little pop-up card, which, by the way, just want to make sure, Alice, when you watch this, there is coffee on this pop-up card that you sent me. This card I got from Alice for New Year's a couple years ago, and inside it is dedicated to my kitty. Like that's yes, Henry IV Part 2, because he was born on Shakespeare's birthday.
Oh, very nice. Okay.
That's how that started. But he's really just Ruru. He answers to Ruru. And I think that Henry IV Part 2 to Prince Hal is an easy leap to understand if you know the play. The leap from Prince Hal to Ruru is harder to understand, but I don't tell that story very often. It's just Ruru.
It's just true. Well, I promised that I would introduce our little man here tonight, because I know all of you got to meet him the last time, but he's here. He's exciting. The other thing, I wanted to pop in a couple other comments. Chloe says, if it helps, as someone who studied dance, I don't know how much audio describing I could do. So maybe it's like it's better to see than do. Yes. Hello, Darwin. Oh. So this is Darwin, and he's a little bit active today.
Oh, look at the baby. Yeah.
He's so tiny. He's such a wee little man. But he had his first vet appointment today. Look at how tiny his head is. I could put him in my hat.
He belongs in your hat.
I know. He's a little monster, aren't you? But since this is all about cat power, I felt that it was only right that he's basically saying, "Hi, Alice. You like Alice too? Mwah. All right, carry on. Off to your catly duties." He is a cutie. I wanted to say a bit more about that, the disability community. Catherine Prendergast, who's going to be on our show next year, she said that Twitter has always helped connect the disability community. And I think that's really interesting. I did not meet you, Cheryl, through Twitter, but we've communicated there since, haven't we?
I don't think so, because I'm never on there. Not for political reasons, but because it's too hard. I don't understand how Twitter works.
Twitter, I get. Mastodon is confusing me a great deal.
Haven't even tried.
Yeah.
But let's talk about #CripTheVote.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Incredible, nonpartisan, but probably fairly progressive, but nonpartisan, totally disabled led and run, what do you call it? Initiative campaign to both get more disabled people engaged in voting and to get all people talking about what are the issues that affect disabled people? All issues. And how can disabled people participate politically in everything?
Yeah.
So, you know, you can't discount the role that, and the Disability Visibility Project has been overwhelmingly online.
Yes.
It's not armchair activism for those who, like me, can't go to a protest or wouldn't survive it for more than 5 seconds. So there's a lot of reasons protests, rallies, testifying at Congress are not accessible. Going online and communicating, sharing, promoting, dialoguing, arguing, sharing recipes. All of that happens online, and it's a beautiful, wonderful thing for anybody who can access that.
I love the idea of curating herself. The fact that she talks about she curates herself in all of these different ways. Anna Lopez Carr just popped in. She said she's still at work, so can't stay, but wanted to share her appreciation for the book. She said, "What an empowering read. Alice's activism makes us a better world for all of us." And I think that that's absolutely true. I was just listening to the audiobook and I love the part where she's basically saying, like, we're reading for you too. You know, this is what we do for the disability community is for everyone. Sadie Simmons says Alice's audiobook has great descriptions of the images in the PDF supplement, which I think is so cool. And the end walks through all of these photos describing them all. And it's the first time I've had an audiobook where I was like, I actually know what's happening.
Right. And you get like some books where they don't even describe or even say what the figures and charts and pictures are. And it's like, why are you providing two different pieces of information? Like Alice is like, here's my book. I want everybody to access the same stuff, no matter how you access it. There's no devaluing of the audiobook version. Yeah, Alice is great with the image descriptions, and they're all in there in the caption. So even if you would say, oh, I don't need an image description, you still, I just opened to the page that I'm on. The descriptions are in there. And what's so cool about image descriptions, because I write those partly for a living too, and I teach about it, is it's another way into the information. It's value added. You learn about the person who's describing it. You learn about the perspectives they come from. And yeah, I could talk about that stuff forever.
Well, we will have time to come back to that too, because I agree with you. And there's so much to say about, it reminds me, I mean, okay, this is going to be a stretch. Sorry, I'm autistic. I do this all the time. But the sort of, when people are like, well, that's STEM and that's the humanities and STEM's important, but humanities aren't. It's like, no, you can't even do one without the other. And so I feel like, in a way, when she takes the time to say, a picture's not worth 1,000 words. Like we can put words on this and make it even better. Catherine Prendergast says it's genre busting, and Kristen Meston agrees. This is totally, when I was putting it in my reading spreadsheet, I said memoir, but it's so much more. Actually, I think that's really interesting. I wonder where you find it on shelves. Has anybody actually gone to look, like at a library? Like, where do they put this?
And let's see what it's listed. Does it have? Well, it's listed here as memoir.
Okay, so they put it in memoir, but it's so funny because it's not that too. It's also like a collection of essays, and there's other people in the book as well, like that she's interviewed. I was thinking about it while I was reading it. I thought, what a wonderful, like, I can't imagine. My agent would laugh at me if I said I wanted to produce something like this, but it's a perfect book. You know what I mean? It's so good. Oh yeah. Also, suck at ableism.
Oh, I have my poster over there. I can't reach it now because everybody knows, like, I'm not getting I mean, you know, log in next week. I might still be here if Ruru's still napping. But yes, I have the suck at ableism poster over out of view.
It's really, and I think a lot of people don't always know what the issues at hand are there. And so for some of you who might be tuning in, but maybe haven't read the whole book, there's a lot of things that get sort of like passing in the news, like something straws, I don't know, and then it's gone. But these are whole life issues for people. I see a couple other comments popping. That's Darwin crying at the door. Anthro Girl said, he's so floppable and posable. We can add to that, Darwin is also quite noisy. Sadie Simmons, she says, I saw an interesting conversation about content warnings on Mastodon and how people of color and disabled voices are being silenced when talking about their own experiences if they don't put content warnings on posts. That's really interesting.
And so not surprising. So not surprising. But very sad.
Yeah.
I feel like you could just open this book and find some wisdom to address that.
It is interesting, though. I mean, Sadie, maybe you can follow up here, but I saw something about that too. It's the fact that, like, oh, if you tell me about your disability, you'll make me sad. Is that kind of what the point
sad
there is? That
or disgusted or I'm separate from that. I don't want to hear about the fragility of human life. I don't want to be reminded that my life is going to end. I don't want to know how, like, people assume, oh, this disabled person, how painful or hard or awful their life must be. I don't want to have to think about it because I'm really comfortable, and people
I see
just project vulnerability onto it and weakness. And I just don't, why should I have to face that? But I think the response to that actually ties into a lot of why this is such a genre busting book. Is nothing is exactly what you think it is. Alice is not this one or two or three things. Nobody is. But she's trying to make the point that you can't look at her from the outside, make your list of decisions of what her life must be, and then take a look in here and you see how multifaceted and varied, and she cusses a lot. I love it. It's so funny. But you see the politics, you see the heartfelt, you see descriptions of, I face this internalized ableism moment. You see all this pleasurable talk about her Chinese culture and heritage.
Yeah,
food
and food.
Of all food. There's recipes in here. There's a snack guide. Where's the snack guide? I just saw.
I love the part about congee, or she doesn't call it that. She calls it juke, I believe. But my general practitioner, Henry Ng, he calls it congee, and because I suffer from IBS, he taught me how to make. My general practitioner taught me how to make congee for myself. So that was really interesting. It's like a rice, like a very simple rice dish for if your stomach's upset specifically. I saw a couple more questions. Boy, you guys are getting fast now. So Jennifer Pierce asked a question. Thank you for the cue. It says, as someone who isn't religious, I rolled my eyes when a comment was made that Alice would be healed by accepting Christ. That is so inappropriate, which Carol Lindner adds just underneath it. So inappropriate. How do you deal with well-meaning, but clearly misinformed people like that? And of course, you and I both have disabilities too. So I don't, it would be really hard for me not to use Alice's motto, fuck the fuckers, for that. But I think it's a good question. What do we do when someone says something they don't mean it to be awful, but it's cringeworthy and awful?
Oh, that's not a rhetorical question, is it?
No, it's a real one.
So I do like to operate from assuming good faith. Sure. I have a cat hair in my mouth. Gosh, Ruru. Okay, good faith. He doesn't understand totally that I'm allergic to him. I'm actually starting to get a little hoarse. So I do like to come from a place of assuming good faith. However, I don't actually believe it that, like, well, this person meant well. I don't always buy that. Yeah. Because well, anyway, I don't always buy that. But let's say in this example, this person is well-meaning and is trying to help, I want to offer you this prayer or this way of healing. And let's say they mean well, yet they're misguided in assuming that Alice or whoever wants to be healed and wants to be healed in that way. Like, as a Jew, I'd be like, get your Christ off of me. What? I don't even like, who is that? So I've read about him, but I don't know how you respond in the moment. I think a joke could be nice if you're in a joking mood, but it's very easy to be microaggressed and to sort of clam up or lash out in the face of that.
Yeah.
But I've heard people go, oh, okay, well, thank you. if it's a battle that you don't want to fight,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
I think that there's wisdom in meeting people where they're at. And I don't know how to tell somebody, like, I reject the notion that Christ will heal me because I don't believe in Jesus Christ. And I reject the notion that there's something so broken about me that you as a stranger, like, well, I don't have a good answer to it because it hasn't happened to me. But I would say that if I were faced with it, and I've been faced with similar, just people didn't invoke Jesus. They just wanted to heal me in general. I just make a confused face at them. And they often stop and they're like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. If we have a relationship, we can dialogue.
You can talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't, sometimes it's the kind of thing to walk away from and, go to your scratching post, scratch it out, go release your cat power, go
get
hiss, go poop in your box, get it out, cover the poop because it smells sometimes.
It's interesting that this has come up because Riva Lair is going to be on our show next season for Gollum Girl. And one of the things she talks about is how through most of her life, she has spina bifida. Everybody was talking about how broken she was. And it took her a long time to actually be like, I'm pretty awesome, actually. Like, I'm cool. I'm good. But also, Jaipreet Verde, do you know who she is? She's a deaf scholar, a friend of mine. It was actually a chastisement for me, because again, we have all this internalized ableism. We don't even always realize we have it. And I was saying, well, can't you teach me? And she's like, it's not always my job to teach you shit. Like, you can go learn stuff all by yourself. You shouldn't put the onus on disabled people all the time. So I think sometimes when people make comments which are like, oh, you might think, oh, this is an educational opportunity, but it's not always your job. Like, you're not supposed to necessarily be everybody's education. Jennifer was also saying that she said this was a mind-blowing book, completely changed the way I need to think, would not have, there's just stuff that wouldn't have occurred. And I feel much the same way. I've been so educated by Alice in general, just in general. Let's see here. Oh, you guys, you've been typing away while I wasn't. All right. I need those cues in there, you guys. The elevator button story. Okay, so Leanne says the elevator button story from her university shows that practical matters are foremost, that's a really big deal. This is from Leanne.
That is a beautiful one. And that one is a lovely example of, you can call it the curb cut effect. So she, from her wheelchair, can't reach those upper buttons. And so they put in on the college campus, they put in a horizontal panel that is at a level where she could reach any floor. And guess what? Lo and behold, if the elevator is packed and you're in the back and you can't, like, how are you going to reach that long arm in front? Well, all sorts of people of any height end up using it because it's there. And when I talk about the curb cut effect with people, I want to make sure that when stuff made for access for disabled people, when it serves non-disabled people well, that is awesome. But it was made for disabled people, and let's not forget whose idea it was and why it was put in the first place. And if everybody benefits, hooray, I love that. But it's not good because non-disabled people also like it. It's good because Alice needed to use the elevator and they made a structural change and she could use the elevator. Great that I can too. But those accommodations, I feel like we accidentally devalue disabled people when we celebrate them because non-disabled people like and use them.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, no, I can see that. I think it's interesting because it's sort of true even of like closed captioning, which is very important. But when people are like, "Oh, closed captioning is so useful when the actors have accents," and I'm like, maybe that's not what it's for, not that again, it's wonderful that it has multiple uses. You're right. But it is interesting where people are like, now it's okay because I can use it. is kind of what they're saying, right?
And there's an essay in here, and Alice published quite a bit at the beginning of the pandemic about how once non-disabled people need an accommodation, suddenly we have the capacity to do it. But when Alice or whoever disabled person is like, hey, I can't fly to your conference because I want my wheelchair. I don't use a wheelchair, but a wheelchair user doesn't want their wheelchair broken on the plane on the way to the conference. Right. Could I zoom in and do my keynote? No, we don't do that.
We don't do that.
Right? Now, to be fair, once the pandemic hit, it did affect all humans on the planet. Sure. And so there's a lot more people who needed video conferencing.
Right.
But it's the we don't and we can't that Alice and other disabled people have always gotten. And it turns out, no, you just didn't want to. You didn't want to invest for this smaller group of disabled people.
Online classes. I taught at a university where they told me we can't accommodate online classes. They've been accommodating them real well for the last couple of years. I'm not there anymore, obviously, but absolutely, like there's things that people just don't want to do, and they turn it into a can't. But it's not a can't. It's a I don't wanna.
Carol Lindner said, because a disabled person asked. Anyway,
well, and because no, you're absolutely right. But because people go, well, that's a minority need, as though that makes it less important. And that's the thing that just like, and it happens all the time. Carol Lindner says when she ordered this book at her local independent bricks and mortar and chatted about it with her bookseller, he ordered extra copies to have on the shelf, which is awesome. Kristen Meston says, I was the same grade year as Alice, and thinking about our different experiences when the ADA passed in the middle of high school blew my mind. Like I was so oblivious. I thought it was about ramps.
Yes.
Yeah, me too.
It takes a long time to learn all the, not only the nuances of what the ADA covers, but also its limitations and who doesn't really get to benefit from it. And I was at this ADA, it was like an ADA celebration. It was a screening of a documentary about microaggressions against disabled people. And they had the screening on the anniversary of the ADA. And so I'm in the audience, somebody else in the audience asked the filmmaker something like, it's been 25 years since the ADA passed. And they asked something about how attitudes have successfully changed in the US because of the ADA. Yeah. And I started laughing so hard. Didn't mean to, very reflexive. And the filmmaker's like, Cheryl, would you like to weigh in? I'm like, the ADA doesn't legislate attitudes. And attitudes are still bad all over the place. Yeah. And people don't have to follow. A lot of people don't have to follow the ADA. And some who technically have to still don't follow it and can often get away with it. And legislation doesn't change attitudes. It just doesn't. ADA, whatever. We still have racism. We still have all sorts of normativity in this country that belittles and degrades people who are not in that normative box, even though we have legislation protecting these various classes. So I don't know if I'm still on topic, but ADA.
But it's so, Anthro Girl said, she said, isn't that just the way, right? Nothing matters to people unless it affects them directly. Then all of a sudden, nobody knew anything about ventilators. And then all of a sudden, ventilators, I got to talk about ventilators. And Alice says that in the one chapter. She's like, I've never heard the word ventilator used so many times on television. It's something that she used all the time. She uses a BiPAP, or did use. And she's like, something she used all the time that nobody even knew anything about suddenly was like everywhere. Page 6 quote, who are nerds if not those who embrace differences, seek community, and support the powerless? Woo, that is just peculiar book club all over it, guys. Go us. Peculiar nerds. Leanne's comment, this gets to me too. Wow. She says, vulnerability is an issue that plagues those with disabilities, one crisis away from institutionalization. Like that is so scary. And I would add here earlier, I think it was Anthro Girl was saying some of this also applies to like other situations. She was saying the way people want to like heal you if you're grieving or something. But I think Leanne's point here is really good. Like how many people are one crisis away from not being able to live independent lives?
Yes, I made a short documentary called In My Home a few years ago, and
Mhm.
it was about that topic, about being one crisis away. And to be clear, for a lot of disabled people, it's not even one crisis away from institutionalization.
Right.
It could just be, I don't know, taking away, conservatorship, or just,
Right.
depends on what state you live in. If
Yeah.
the money is is funneled more toward home care, or the money's not following the person, and you got to be
Mhm.
institutionalized. Anyway, but I
Mhm.
made this short
Mhm.
documentary In My Home, and I didn't want, I hate making stuff for the non-disabled gays, but I also wanted to make something that would um, attract the interest of non-disabled people. And so I focused on animals. I focused on the companion animals and pets of the people in the film. And like
Mm.
Yulia is sitting there with her chubby tuxedo cat, and she's like, if I get institutionalized, I am not only separated from my spouse, I'm separated from my cat. I can't and the cat's like walking across Yulia's lap in a very relatable way. Anybody who cares about cats will be like, oh, I want a cat to walk across me like
Right.
that. And I want to, like, I think being
Mhm.
separated from her cat maybe isn't the worst thing that would happen at being institutionalized, but I don't see hearts and minds being swayed by the other arguments about my freedom of choice will be taken away. I
Yeah.
can't get a job anymore. I don't decide when meals are. I might be stuck in bed. Like, that doesn't seem to sway non-disabled people.
No.
So I was like, well, look at Yulia. Look at this cat. You want to break them up? Like, what? It's precarious, and it doesn't have to be so precarious. If we
Right.
had legislation that, the Olmsted ruling, and rest in peace and power, Lois Curtis,
Mhm.
um, the Olmsted decision, like, people with whatever disability should have the choice to live in the community, and the funding that they get should go toward home health and community members meeting their needs rather than institutionalization. And
Right. And it's the idea that I think it was Riva. I've talked to both Riva and Alice and several of you, so I don't know who said it now, but about this concept that somehow you won't get married or have like that you won't have relationships. Like you're somehow in this little, oh, you're a disabled person, you're in this little bubble, and we're gonna put you over here, and we're not gonna worry about you. Oh, Anya's just turned up. Anya is here. She they had some winter. They had some winter in Montana today, but she's here. She's got her ginger cocktail ready to go. Um, and actually, there's so much to talk about. I feel like I'm always and this is true of the entire book. If you guys aren't finished with it yet, I spend half my time going, "This is so funny. This is so relatable. This is so warm," and half my time going, "I am going to kill everyone." Like I get so angry at stuff, and I'm just like, "How could this be?" And parts of it are sad. I mean, she just takes you on this wonderful guided tour roller coaster of like all the emotions, which is really unfair to an autistic person. But no, it's wonderful. I'm really enjoyed it. I feel like I'm having coffee with Alice every time I sit down and read it, which is beautiful. Um, I see several more questions and comments popping up, which is awesome. And I want you to keep filling those in. There's so much more to talk about, including, I think, one of the things we should maybe talk about is just how many of us are actually disabled. Sometimes it's visible and sometimes it's not. And even coming to terms with that and our own internalized ableism, which is something Alice talks about all the time. And I think that's really interesting. So we're going to take a quick break and do some announcements, if I can find them and figure out how to use them. So that'll be exciting. Let's see, a little bit of elevator music made. Do, 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 do. Oh, I found them. Hey, that wasn't so bad. All right. Well, first of all, of course, this is Year of the Tiger is the book we were talking about. I love the cover of this so hard. You can still get the signed copies. We've got signatures from Alice, from Fox Lane Books in the UK, and from Loganberry Books in the United States, which is amazing. And they're both indie shops. So we only partner with independent bookstores. So announcements. First of all, there are a lot of ways to connect with us. If this is your first time, we are on Facebook. We have a page you can like. We have a group. The group is really fun because we all sit around and talk about our weird hobbies, which I think is a lovely thing. We're also on Twitter and Instagram and all the other places. Secondly, we now have a Patreon page. Now, in general, Patreon is something, it is not necessary. You do not have to join it. But if you want to help support us, we do try to keep a lot of our content free and me not in debt, which is good. Peculiar cocktail. So this was a crazy, interesting cocktail, kind of savory, kind of out there. Liked it. Very orange, very tigery. And the name that won. So you might notice Alice talks a lot about herself as though she might be an alien or an X-Man or a superhero or mutant or a cat. And so we went with Flurkin Flooftail. The Flurkin Flooftail won all the votes. Flurkin being the alien cat that belonged. Chewie is his name, actually. Chewie is a Flurkin. He is the cat that belongs to Captain Marvel. So the Flurkin Flooftail, which is really hard to say, and if you drink too many of them, might come out differently. Just saying. Peculiar Book Club Season 4, you can still get, if you want to buy a whole season subscription, you can also still do that until December 30th. We're also probably going to do buy one, get one 50% off for Christmas. And next show is November 17th. We only have a week. This one's contracted a little bit sooner than usual because of Thanksgiving. But you guys, it's about poo. And I feel like, right? I know. It's so exciting. The other dark matter. We've just had an election. It just feels right to me. I think it's good and right that we should be talking about poo.
I wrote, when you first wrote me, first of all, can we get my name up there? Because it's such a pretty font.
Yeah. Hang on, it is really cool. All right.
Brandy, when you first wrote to me to ask if I would join you on this, didn't I tell you, I'm reading Brynne Nelson's book called Flush. So here's my name, and I'm here to talk about that is another amazing book about poop. I love this book. I was on the phone the other night with my mom for her birthday, on Zoom. And I was like, Mom, look at this book about poop and look at the cover art. It's a flushing toilet. So, oh my gosh, whoever loves this book that you're going to be talking about next week, if you can't get enough poop, get over there to Flush by Brynne Nelson. I earn no money for saying this. I just love the book.
I love it. I love it so much. Cheryl, you have been a dream. You will be coming back after we're gonna do a little music, and then we're gonna bring on Wendy Liu, and then you're gonna return to us towards the end of the show. I see more comments coming up. Don't worry, we're gonna have time to get to them. But first, a little bit of music, then a little bit of Wendy, and I will, when we bring Cheryl back, even though Davey's not here, he made a video quiz for us. So that's still happening. But first some music, then some Wendy, then some quiz. I just have to find the music.
Hello, Peculiars.
We're Charming Disaster.
And we have a song for you.
About the inevitable decay of all things. It's called
String Break Song.
Everything breaks down eventually. It's all just a matter of entropy. Thermodynamics and gravity. We're all gonna fall in the end. When you play the record, the needle gets dull. It's tragically irreversible. You know some erosion's inevitable when you rub up against the world. You're locked in a box, try to hold your breath, conserve what remains of the air that's left. If you don't breathe, you'll smother yourself, but every inhale brings you closer to death. Everything breaks down eventually. We're all decomposing gradually into atoms and cells and vanity. All our constituent parts. You can't make sparks without friction, or music, or love, or nonfiction. That's just the price of admission. You can't ride the ride without wearing it out. Still locked in a box, try to hold your breath, conserve what remains of the air that's left. If you don't breathe, you'll smother yourself, but every inhale brings you closer to death. Chaos is gonna win in the end. The universe is flying apart. There ain't nothing much you can do about it. Burn up the candle or live in the dark. Burn up the candle or live in the dark. Burn up the candle or live in the dark. Burn up the candle or live in the dark.
Yeah,
That last note. Huh?
We had a couple of questions pop up, which I'm going to answer really quickly, and then we're going to bring Wendy Liu on. There was several people talking about the announcement, so I just wanted to get in here that the swag is amazing. There's a scarf and a hat, but Anthro Girl said, "Oh, she missed the VIP subscriptions. No swag for you." Not so. We actually ended up keeping the swag for VIP subscriptions open, and we opened them all the way until December 30th. So if you want to join us and still get swag, I just ordered an entire another set of 3 boxes of hats and scarves. So Anthro Girl, you can do it. It can happen. So yes, the subscriptions are still open because I love you guys. That's all. Anna says she wore her hat and scarf nonstop for a week. And getting back to our subject, before we hopped off, Chloe had written this right before the song went up that a lot of unis seem to be backtracking on their accessibility promises. And that is so true. And it's something that is newsworthy, but isn't always making it into the news. Segue to Wendy Liu. Do you see how I did that? All right. Stick around, Cheryl. We'll be back. And coming at you now is Wendy Liu without an ink explosion. Just pretend. Because I can't do it.
Hi.
There you are. There you are. Hello. It is so good to see you. I'm so glad that you have joined us today. I'm looking for my fun little banner that I made for you. Let's see. There it is.
Oh, so pretty. Thank you so much for having me.
We're so excited for you to be here. Now, to start off with, I thought maybe you could tell everybody a little bit about what you do at the New York Times. This is a relatively new role for you, and it's just really, really awesome to have someone like you on board looking at this and going, why are these stories not covered?
Yeah, absolutely. So hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks again for having me. I am a senior editor on the flexible editing desk at the New York Times. When I first heard flexible editing desk, it made me think of like doing ballet. I don't do any ballet, but essentially being on the flex desk means that anytime other teams are short on editors, that's when we step in to help with editing. So I help edit politics, climate change stories, culture, health, wellness, pretty much everything under the sun. And then I'm also a board member of the National Center on Disability and Journalism. And in that capacity, I put together trainings for other newsrooms to help them report on disability in a more respectful, inclusive, and accurate way. So
Which is amazing because I was, before all of you got here, I was having a quick chat with Wendy and Cheryl about how I don't typically write about disability issues. I've done it a little bit. And even as someone who has a disability, mine is not a visible one, I find it so difficult to write about because there's so much to consider, to be careful and generous. And lots of people are not those things when they write about disability.
Absolutely. No, I think that's so true. And something about disability that I feel like we're still sort of understanding in the news, that's not just something that falls in healthcare. And it's not something that falls in the lifestyle section, like, cutesy stories about being inspirational, like disability, something that falls in every category of news, whether it's education, health, yes, but also politics. And so when I'm thinking about every time I'm trying to report or edit, I try to remember that even though I have a disability, it doesn't mean that I know what it's like to have every other disability. So I always try to remind myself, like, I inherently have some kind of bias or awareness to get better at, but I always start from there. So I know that I need to come from a place of asking questions, listening to the people that I talk to for stories. And so, yeah, but it takes a lot of practice over time and kind of trusting yourself too.
Yeah, well, and I think just being willing to be corrected. I mentioned earlier that one times I was interviewing Jaipreet Virdi, and that's when I was saying, "Oh, could you explain it?" She was like, "I could, but I don't have to," and that's so valuable. And I think sometimes what happens, right? You say to someone, "Hey, that's not how you should talk about that," and they don't go, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'll correct it." That's not what happens, right? They kind of double down.
No, it's so true. And I feel like that's always where we're always trying to come from a place of being willing to grow and be open. And I feel like that's important. It's always possible to make mistakes or not know how to write or talk about something. And I think that's okay. But once you realize there's a better way to go about this, then you see, what can I learn from this? How can I continue to build on what I already know and go from there? So, yeah.
Well, one thing I'm really curious about is, first of all, you're a senior editor at New York Times. I mean, I'm guessing, kind of a milestone. I don't think that there have been many places which have been accepting and willing and to even go, yeah, this is important enough that we need somebody here to do this. So is that something that surprised you? Is it something you yourself have been fighting for and bringing about? I was so excited, but I was also like, wow, that seems like there aren't that many people like that.
Yeah, I feel so grateful to be in this position because I know it's hard to be a disabled person working in the news. And I wish there were more of us. And before the Times, I was at HuffPost, editing as well and writing a lot about disability issues over there already. And it's something I've been doing for, I guess, 5+ years now. And I've seen some progress. I feel like there are some stories that we do less of, if you've heard of inspiration porn.
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of a type of story where people with disabilities are just propped up as heroes or inspirations for just being disabled. Or it's a story about someone non-disabled doing a good deed.
Yeah. Right.
And yeah, I still see some of that, but it's gotten less. And I do see some more strides in the news industry. So, for example, this started before I went to the Times, but we have a disability fellowship program where we have fellows every year covering disability. And that's something that I don't think existed before. And even outside of that, we're trying to cover more disability issues. And I'm hoping as I continue to like familiarize myself with the newsroom, that I'll be able to have a bigger impact on that over time.
That's cool. And a couple other people saying they really like the comment disability lifestyle. And I think that's really important. A shout out to Sarah Luderman here from Carol. And
I love
Catherine,
Sarah. I'm so
just being glad that you exist. We're just excited that you exist. I think what's interesting too, I know we do a lot of sex on this show. Strangely, I don't know why we have a lot of sex, but I want to bring sex back into it. One of the other things about inspiration porn is this weird way in which disabled people, and this is not new, by the way. I was a Victorian 18th and 19th century studies person at one point, and so there's all these like the virginal blind girl, or the Tiny Tims, right? The Tiny Tims, a small moral child who is moral partly because of disability or something. Cricket on the Hearth is I can't remember. She's deaf. I think she's deaf. Maybe she's blind. I've forgotten. But Charles Dickens was notorious for this. But there's all this sort of like, if you are disabled, you are lifted up to this kind of angelic figure, but also sexless and like this stuff.
Absolutely. And it's like sex and relationships with disability there's so many sort of like things that are projected onto us where, like you said, we're, viewed as sexless, but we're still in a way objectified and treated as objects, or you just see a part of who I am and don't realize like disability is an essential part of that, and it's not removed from it. And like also, it's like you don't love me despite my disability, but it's part of it.
Right. Yeah, no, it's so true. And so I think just having disability visibility is the exact opposite of the don't, you're a trigger warning kind of thing, right? Earlier they were saying that some social media platforms are asking people to put content warnings if they're going to talk about their disability, which is like what, because the whole idea is the more people you see, they shouldn't have to be hidden away. And this is done, right? That again, 18th and 19th century, not a good time to be disabled. They would have you, I certainly would have been like way locked up because I have both epilepsy and autism. So I'd be screwed, I'd be locked up somewhere. Animal woman. Oh gosh, or womanish. So it is really interesting how that kind of happens. And here in the chat we've got a couple of people talking. Chloe Rogers was saying about having long COVID and dealing with that. Anya has been dealing with long Legionnaire's disease, and it does feel like people aren't going to have a choice but to get used to seeing this is going to happen. COVID has. It's funny. Someone said COVID's made us vulnerable. I was like, no, COVID has exposed vulnerabilities that were already there. Anthro Girl says disability porn made me think of new social media trends where disabled people show how they do things and non-disabled people make requests of what they should do. Thoughts? I'm not heard of that one.
That makes me so uncomfortable because it's like we're not here to entertain or inspire or like I don't know, act like we can do tricks. It's so uncomfortable for me. So yeah, it's similar to how I feel about disability simulations, where non-disabled people like say, I'm gonna try and be disabled for a day, see how it feels. And it's like, well, it's not a costume you can take on and off. It's part of who I am. So
yeah. Or Leanne's quoting from Alice. This is the work of disability never ends, and that's
very well put.
That's totally true. It is really interesting. I mean, I think I don't look like I am disabled, but even I have had some of that weird. Like I went to a neurologist once, and he was like, asking me if I could hold down a job. I was like, yeah, I have a job. I'm in graduate school. He's like, well, what are you studying? I said, well, at the moment I'm studying literature. And he goes, can you recite a poem? And I was like, why am I doing this? Yes.
It's like we don't have to prove that
Yeah.
one, we're disabled enough, but two, that we can do things while being disabled. So
yeah. Oh, whoa, there's a whole conversation happening over here. You guys, I lost track. But idea, at least in the UK, this is picking up from Chloe, says the idea, at least in the UK, that it will only affect the vulnerable, as if we weren't supposed to care about people with disabilities. Right. So I might have missed some of that early on, but that sense that like, oh, this is only going to kill off this is only going to kill off disabled people is not, that's not a
right. No, it's like, well, we should care regardless. Right.
Yeah, because we're people. Because disabled people are people.
Very descriptive.
Yeah. So, well, your work is amazing. We're so glad you could be with us, and just wondered, is there anything you would like to leave us with? Any places you'd like us to go check out, or thoughts you want to leave us with, or areas we can find your work?
Sure. I mean, my website is wendyliwrites.com, WendyLuwrites.com. And outside of my journalism, I like to write children's fiction.
Yay!
I try to talk about things in addition to my work as a journalist, and that's something that brings me a lot of joy. So yeah. And thank
That's
you
awesome.
for being here.
I hope you'll come back. I really do. So if come back. We really enjoyed this. And Wendy, by all means, stick around in the green room. We'll chat with you at the end too. Okay.
Sounds great.
Thank you so much. All right, and back with Cheryl. That was amazing. Wasn't that fun? I actually lost track. There was some really great discussion happening over here, partly about just things we're all dealing with. Legionnaires, long COVID. There's some people with Lyme disease, some people with sort of undiagnosed things we're not really even sure that they have. So, yeah.
Yeah. How many lines can I get in for that one?
I've got a tick mark box. You can.
Well, hopefully you have enough printer paper that you can print out several. And I want to also say, like, one of the things that Wendy Liu brings is such a beautiful expansion of what disability journalism and journalism by a disabled person with a disability lens, what the breadth and depth of what's out there. Because a lot of people are like, they want to hear like an injury story or the surgery or how'd you get this or what went wrong.
Yeah.
And if you go to wendyliwrites.com and check out the page with all the links to Wendy's writing, it is such an incredible variety and just thoughtful perspectives and analysis on so many social and political topics. So
that's awesome. I think I'm so lucky that I get to spend so much of my time just hanging out with all you writer people. And Davey, who's not here, he's with us in spirit, and he loves hanging out with all you guys too. So much so that it is time for Davey's quiz. Guys, I did not preview this. I have no idea what we're about to get ourselves into. Here comes some Davey.
Hi, Brandy. Hi, Peculiars. You didn't think I was going to leave you this week without a quiz to do? So this week, we're doing a quiz I am calling It Happened on the Year of the Tiger. We're going to go to past years of the tiger, 2010, 1998, 1986. And we're going to ask you some trivia questions from those years. So question number one for Brandy, her guests, and all the Peculiars. In 2010, a new building was crowned as the tallest building in the world, standing a massive 2,722 feet tall. It still holds the title today. Is it A, the Taipei 101 building in Taiwan? Is it B, the Burj Khalifa in Dubai? Or is it C, the Terminal Tower right here in Cleveland?
Okay, you guys, I know it's not the Terminal Tower. Pretty sure it's not the terminal tower. All right. So, okay. Well, we luckily can reach out to the peculiars. Tori says it's B. Amanda says B. B.
I was going to guess B.
Yeah, y'all said B. Okay, everybody says B. All right. He also filmed the answers. So here, let's find out.
Well, everyone, I hope you said B because the answer is Burj Khalifa in Dubai, and it still does hold that record today. Unfortunately, the terminal tower only clocked in at just over 700 feet tall.
That's still pretty tall.
It is pretty tall. It's pretty tall. It's certainly tall around here. But Lexi said she knew this because she used to teach dimensional analysis. That's great. Chloe says loves the Cleveland cameos. Davey and I are both here in Cleveland, so it's going to happen. All right, here we go. Question number 2.
All right, for question number 2, we're moving back to 1998, the year of the tiger in the 90s, and the framework of peace in Northern Ireland was put in place with the signing of this landmark agreement in Ireland and United Kingdom relations. Was it A, the Easter Acknowledgement, B, the Spring Signings, or C, the Good Friday Agreement?
Oh boy, I'm maybe not good at this. Oh, well, that's okay. You guys are all over it. We've got Crispin says C. C. What about you, Cheryl? Do you have a...
I'm going, no comment. Except I'm kind of encouraged to go with C.
I feel a lot of encouragement from you peculiars going with C. They usually hook us up. It's pretty good. All right. Let's see what he has to say here. I got to get these in the right order here.
Spring Signings did sound enticing, but the correct answer is the Good Friday Agreement. Did you get it right?
Well, I didn't, but by golly, the peculiars did. They carried the day on these quizzes, I got to say. All right, here we go. Last question. I'm 0 for 2.
Moving back another 12 years, staying with the year of the tiger, we're now in 1986. And in 1986, unfortunately, the world was rocked by some major tragedies. Which of these did not happen in the 80s year of the tiger, 1986? Was it A, the Greenpeace ship Rainbow Warrior explosion, the B, Chernobyl explosion, or C, the Space Shuttle Challenger explosion?
I have some, I don't know, but I have some weird news. They found pieces of the spaceship Challenger in the ocean recently while looking for shipwrecks.
Whoa.
That's my contribution. I know nothing else, but
I remember all 3 of these things, or I think I do.
I can't remember what year they were in. Like 86? Was that the...
There's a possibility Chernobyl was the early 90s. I should not even open my mouth on stuff.
I feel like Chernobyl's definitely 80s. I'm almost positive, but I think I'm going to go with the Greenpeace thing. What do you guys say? Oh, A. Oh, but Lexi says no. C. My favorite unit to teach in chem is nuclear. Oh, so maybe that's not in the right year. Maybe you were right. I'm so prepared for Chernobyl to be an answer, but then it was the opposite. See, they finding pieces of that for decades to come. Yes, the Challenger, they totally will. All right, guys.
Why are these disability questions?
That's what Davey does to us. He always finds a sideways road to take.
Yes, the correct answer was A, the Greenpeace ship Rainbow Warrior explosion or sinking actually happened a year earlier in 1985. However, Chernobyl and the Challenger explosions both happened in the year of the tiger, 1986. Well, I hope you enjoyed the quiz this week, Peculiars. I'm sorry I can't be with you on the full show, and I look forward to hanging out with you next time.
I feel
Davey's got it, you know.
I just feel so unworldly. I only learned about that building in Dubai like a couple days ago, quite randomly.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't learn about it quite randomly a couple days ago too. But he's very good at these quizzes, though, I have to say. Davey's quizzes are always they're always a joy, right? They really are. Davey had total video Jeopardy vibes today. That's true. The Greenpeace thing threw me right off, says Susan.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah. So you'd be surprised. These quizzes are never like, I'm like, ask me about some like old medical stuff. Oh, 3 out of 3. Stephanie got 3 of 3. Stephanie, you're on it. You guys were totally all over this quiz. This was much easier than the last one for all of you. Maybe not for me, though, actually. So we are running a little bit late. We're moving through time and space. We have so much more that I feel like we could talk about. There were so many good questions. I also realized that several of you are really happy to find out that you can still buy VIP submission. I'm going to have to like send a clarifying email. You know what? My communication has been so bad. You'd think I was like, the CDC talking about COVID or something. Wendy, are you still with us? I'd love to bring you back on for the last part of it. Oh, there you are. Good. Why do we pretend to have a time limit? We should get rid of it. I know. I'm like, I did start it on time though. Daggone it. I was really pleased with myself for that. There's Wendy. So since I have the 3 of us, well, the 2 of you, and I'm always here, I was wondering if we had any final questions that we might want to throw to either of you. And I was actually going to take my little face off so that we can see you guys nice and big. By the way, this is the new mic that Davey made me get because he said I didn't sound good enough with the last one. So hopefully Davey was displeased with my lack of professionalism, you guys. I'm literally camouflaged in my chair. Look, this is why it works for Wildcats, right? I'm hiding in the bushes. So I'm going to take myself out. You guys, questions, thoughts, or you guys can ask each other questions. I just thought we'd close with a little bit more from you guys because it's such a pleasure having you on.
Hi,
Wendy. I can't take the pressure of like unplanned improvised moments.
I know, same. I'm like,
Sorry.
Okay.
When I should start. I think I wanted to start. I'll start us off. Sorry. See, that's me being autistic again. But so let me say this. I want to ask this because I do think that there is a difference between disabilities that are highly visible and disabilities that are not highly visible. And I feel like they get talked about really differently in the media. And I wonder if maybe we could talk a little bit about that because, for instance, long COVID, long Legionnaires, my chronic autoimmune issues, like even autism, like they're not something like I don't carry them around, and people often mistake that. Yeah, Susan Ballinger said it's like I just called on you guys in class. So, all right, what do you think about that?
yeah. I mean, I feel like I have so many thoughts about it. In part because I actually have multiple disabilities. My tracheostomy tube is the one that is the most visible. It's physical. It's the one that I end up talking about the most. But then, like, I actually have other invisible disabilities that then I feel like, wow, like so many, it makes my experience that much more complex, but also beautiful in many ways. And you're so right that like in the news, they're talked about very differently. I feel like when we think of disability, it is often the visible things that you can see, but there's so many things. There's chronic pain. There's a lot of things that I think people don't realize can also be within that umbrella. And then once you do realize that it's, in that umbrella, you find such an amazing community of people.
I agree. Oh, and Carol said the visible, invisible is really huge. And I agree with that. We do have a question from Kristen. It's a long one, so I'm going to remove myself so we
When can we have Alice's mom make us dumplings? But seriously, I found myself enjoying my food more this week thanks to Alice's personal joys. Sometimes I forget to enjoy life's little things. And this is coming from Kristen Meston.
I have had that experience too. I was lying on the floor one day because I was too sick and tired to sit up in a chair. And I was listening to Alice on some event. It was in 2021. And she's like going on and on about freaking cupcakes. And I was like, oh. And I started just, I think about Alice and politics and culture. And I was like, Oh yeah. Oh yeah, cupcakes. Look, Ruru's getting all excited and stirring around that cupcake. But it was both her humor, but also just the unabashed, like, I love this. This tastes good. And this is
Mhm.
something I can eat. Like, that's another thing that you can learn from reading the book if you don't already know. Some of the things that Alice eats are out of necessity because some things are harder to swallow than others.
Mhm.
But not to over medicalize, there's a lot of, she was eating a high fat, high protein diet. So it's like whipped cream to the max. Let's go. But the snack manifesto, and I do believe I opened to this page earlier for some other reason, but I also reading this and like reading, she's got recipes in here. You can taste it. And you do go
Mhm.
and you're like,
Mhm.
Alice would love this thing that I'm eating. And I love this thing that I'm eating. I think that's something that you have when you feel love and admiration for someone. They
Yeah.
talk about food and you can taste it. And sharing snacks is a love language.
That's true. She was saying recently that because she can't eat like she used to, but she was getting to like get some fries. She was talking about aioli and fries, and I thought even now, like I'm just like, oh. And I have a hate relationship with food because most of my conditions mean there's a lot of food I can't have. That's why my general practitioner taught me how to make congee. But what's interesting is I ended up writing a story called The Days of Rice, which I never did anything with, but it was just about me feeling like how hopeless things become when you're down to not being able to eat anything except, white rice or something. And then to instead see her broad-minded approach to food was invigorating, hopeful, a little chastising. Like it was really good. It was a really amazing thing. Chloe says, oops, sorry, I'll just read Chloe's.
No, go for it.
Didn't me too. Says Chloe, it's also how we have a society where we feel the need to defend ourselves against being lazy, apologizing for being slower when we don't need to be sorry. And I think that's apologizing for not being able to eat or taking longer to eat, apologizing. It's really interesting. So anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Cat life, everybody. Take naps, eat food, pack yourself into small containers. Take your time, sleep.
I was just
Wendy, what were you going to say?
Yeah. I mean, I really identify with the things that Alice says about her relationship with food. I think she recently published an article, maybe it was in Eater, about food. And I remember a lot of that, and it mirrors a lot of my experience with food because I have GERD. That's one of my other disabilities. It's very intense GERD, acid reflux. So like, I also have such a complicated feeling of when I can't eat something, but I want to, and I just can't. It's right there. But then when I do eat, it's like it's heaven. And so I really identify with that aspect of Alice's writing when she talks.
Yeah. Just God, it's just that wonderful moment of realizing that, and this is something else that I love about her book is that when you're disabled, it doesn't mean you don't get joy anymore. It's like people do that with poverty too. It's like, well, you're poor, you don't get to have smelly candles. You don't. There was a whole article I read one time where someone was saying how frustrated they were when they were poor. They wanted to buy like a nice smelling candle for their apartment and were chastised for it. Like, how dare you enjoy this thing? You're supposed to be miserable and poor because you're poor. And I think with disability, you get that too. It's like, shouldn't you just be sorry all the time? You should just be sad, right? Like, you like things? How weird.
Yeah, that makes me think of when I was younger, when every time we had to fight for like my accommodations in school, I was always kind of pressured to look weak and sad so that they would believe that I was disabled enough to get accommodations. So that's what that makes me think.
Catherine Prendergast just said that Alice is like a dirty bomb of joy. And those of you who are on this show a lot are going to realize that when I say this, I mean this. Alice is the absolute unit. we have this ongoing joke at our club, because someone is always an absolute unit. She is the unit today. I think that's so fun. Carol's leaving us. She says, a fond adieu. Yes, we've run over our time a bit here. Anthro Girl said, you have to be sad and pitiful and miserable to be deserving of accommodations. That's what makes it so wrong, and that's what we're constantly fighting against. Angel 1573 says, only the normal people get to enjoy life according to themselves. Their normal sounds super boring to me, though. We have more fun. Child at heart, perk for life. So I think that's awesome. And this joy is something I feel sharing with all of you. It has been wonderful to have all of you peculiars out there joining us tonight. It has been an absolute pleasure, and I can't wait to do it again next time. And I can't wait to have Wendy and Cheryl back on another time too. So thank you so much. As I look for the brand information I need to put up here. I love how Davey just makes it seem so easy. There's some sort of video I need to play at the end here. Oh, there it is. Okay. So thank you so much, because it's wonderful that you're here with us at a place where, if you're weird, you're family.
You got the blue bottle blues when you wake up in the night. Don't make a big mistake, 'cause you can never make it right. When you reach out for the vial, feel the ridges in the glass. It's a matter of survival, baby. Better watch your back. There is no antidote. There is no